Kiva was super capital efficient. Amazon acquired us for close to 800 million. This is something that is unprecedented in automation.
Lui è Raffaello D'Andrea, per gli amici Raff. Ha cofondato Kiva Systems nel 2003, venduta poi ad Amazon per circa 800 milioni nel 2012, che per l'inflazione corrisponde più o meno a 1 miliardo e passa di oggi. L'azienda, poi rinominata Amazon Robotics, si occupa di usare robot per i magazzini. Oggi Raff insegna all'ETH di Zurigo ed è CEO e cofondatore di Verity, un'azienda che si occupa sempre di robotica ma questa volta con i droni, inizialmente concentrandosi sulla parte di arte e spettacolo, collaborando con star da tutto il mondo. E poi hanno spinto anche sulla specialità di Raff, cioè la robotica, l'organizzazione dei magazzini. Se i robot si occupavano di spostare effettivamente gli oggetti, i droni si occupano delle informazioni, leggono etichette, si assicurano che tutto sia in ordine, fanno foto e video, si ricaricano, tutto in automatico.
The only time that a person needs to touch a drone is after 2 or 3 months.
Così, sotto consiglio di Eric, fondatore di Gomri, conosciuto in Silicon Valley, ex studente di Raff all'ETH, ho scritto a Raff, che mi ha subito risposto accettando di fare questa intervista. Lui è nato in Italia, a Pordenone, ma solamente a 9 anni si è trasferito in Canada ed è cresciuto là. La sua storia inizia come quella di qualsiasi ricercatore accademico. Raff è uno studente brillante, studia in varie università, fa master, dottorati, postdottorati e insegna con successo. Dopodiché però a 35 anni diventa anche imprenditore, ottenendo successo anche in questo campo. Ma prima di farmi raccontare tutta la sua vita, facciamo un po' un tour dell'azienda con sede a Zurigo. Raffaello mi ha accolto all'entrata. L'ufficio ha i soffitti molto alti, fondamentali per testare i loro droni.
You can see some of the lampshades we use with Cirque du Soleil. This is our patent wall. We're a deep tech company. We have about 150 patents. This is not all of them.
Il tour poi è continuato passando dalla reception per la cucina, andando verso le aree dove testano i droni. L'aria che si respira non è da ufficio pettinato, ma da startup con le mani in pasta, a costruire cose e sporcarsi le mani.
You know, what's a startup without a foosball table?
Yeah, of course.
And a ping pong table?
Qua ho visto un test di routine. I droni sono autonomi e vengono testati in questa versione ricostruita di un magazzino.
99.9% of all our software development happens in simulation. But at the end of the day, you have to try it on the real system. And what they're doing is they're flying around fully autonomously. No one is controlling them, obviously. And they're taking images. This is supposed to mimic a warehouse where they're taking images of inventory and figuring out what is there by reading barcodes. They have 3D depth sensors to figure out volume. They usually fly for 10-15 minutes. Here again, we're just testing. You can see here the autonomous takeoff and landing.
Yeah.
Features of the system.
They know precisely where to land. Everything is tracked.
They know exactly where they are in space. They use something called inside-out localization, which means that by having all the sensors on the device itself, they can figure out by looking where they are, exactly where they are in space. So they know where to fly, they know how to avoid obstacles, they know where to land.
No pilot is needed.
No pilot is needed.
I droni sono così autonomi che non serve toccarli se non per le manutenzioni. Non solo volano, ma vanno a ricaricarsi da soli. Un elemento cruciale infatti è la grandezza della batteria. Non può essere troppo grande, altrimenti peserebbero troppo, e non troppo piccola, altrimenti sarebbero sempre in carica.
There's an optimal battery size. It's like your car. You don't want to drive around with a huge gas tank because then you're carrying fuel around for no reason. Conversely, you don't want too small of a gas tank because then you're constantly going to the gas station. So we optimize the battery size exactly for this.
Nonostante l'exit milionaria, Raff non ha perso il valore della frugalità, evitando di comprare sale riunioni da centinaia di migliaia di euro, optando per opzioni molto più casalinghe.
We didn't want to spend $5,000 on a meeting room, so we got this for like a couple of $100.
How many employees are here?
So here, about 160. We have 170 globally, 10 are in the United States. This is our back office. It's different functions because we do desk sharing. This is my desk.
Siamo poi passati per la sala server, arrivando poi all'area degli sviluppatori.
Because most of the work is actually software, right?
Most of it is actually, yeah.
Poi un corridoio pieno di foto e trofei.
This is when we did TED,
Yeah,
2016, flying over the audience. We did the pre-game show of the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. This was Metallica. This was a show we did in China.
Poi siamo passati all'area dove effettivamente costruiscono i droni. Loro non li comprano dall'estero, anche se potrebbe essere più economico, ma li costruiscono in casa, preferendo integrare la filiera e avere controllo sulla qualità.
We're a fully vertically integrated company, just like Apple is with their phones and Tesla. For us, it's much more important that things are super reliable and they work all the time than we try to save 20-30% by having them made somewhere else.
Yeah.
Non ho potuto ficcanasare tutto perché chiaramente ci sono un po' di segreti industriali qua e là.
How much does it cost to create one drone?
So I can't tell you, but I can give you some ranges between 1,000 and 5,000. And that's for everything. The assembly, the charger, everything
From the
else.
beginning to the end.
Mi ha poi mostrato un po' di vecchi modelli di droni che hanno realizzato.
This was actually the first drone that we launched with IKEA. It's 2021. This is our Verity map. This is where we have Verity installations globally. So you can see it's mainly Europe, North America.
States.
We have some in Canada and South Africa. We have some cruise ships there for our live events business. This is actually also live events. Abu Dhabi SeaWorld, we have a large installation simulation there.
Your business model, how much is shows and how much is warehouses?
Most of it is warehouses. In fact, also in terms of people, we have 7 people devoted to live events, and the rest are devoted to our, what we call our core business, our warehousing business. But the live events, you know, when we created this amazing technology, we weren't able to monetize it immediately. We have self-flying drones, but it's taken us a long time to get here. We've raised a lot of money, over $90 million.
In the meantime, to have some cash.
A quel punto mi ha portato a vedere il test dei loro droni più piccoli e leggeri, i Lusi, che utilizzano per gli spettacoli.
They use something called ultra-wideband for localization. We've actually developed the world's first hyperbolic system for localization with ultra-wideband, which means that these entities only have to listen to traffic to figure out where they are. So they actually don't have to communicate. Like with GPS, you can have a million cars on the road because they can figure out where they are just by listening to the satellites. We can do the same thing here. We can have an unlimited number of drones that just by listening to satellites that are in the space, these are the satellites right here, just by listening to them, I'm gonna try to go in between.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Just have good situational awareness. Yeah. I mean, nothing really bad's gonna happen to you because they're so light. So they fly for about 3 minutes. And again, it's that trade-off between, you know, weight and light. Most of the performances we do, you know, we just want that special moment. 3 minutes is enough. And if we ever do need more than 3 minutes, then we just have another fleet that takes off and does its thing.
Terminato il tour, ci siamo seduti in una sala riunioni e mi sono fatto raccontare tutto il suo percorso imprenditoriale. Come ho detto, tutta la prima parte della sua vita è stata accademica e poi a un certo punto ha fondato la sua prima azienda.
The first company was Kiva Systems. And actually what happened there was I was a professor at Cornell University. I was doing a sabbatical at MIT, and Mick Mounts, who is the person that originated the idea of Kiva Systems, was using videos from my research lab, which was robots playing soccer. We were the RoboCup world champions at Cornell University. He saw these videos and he thought to himself, if people can make robots that can play soccer, we can deploy them in warehouses. And his idea was to use mobile robots in distribution facilities to bring the goods to the people so that they could pick things without doing all this walking around. The company was just his laptop and some ideas behind it. And we had a common friend, Marilyn Vandermeulen, who's a professor at Cornell University. She put us in touch. I met with him. We met for 3 hours. Next day, we met again for 3 hours. And then I just quit my sabbatical at MIT and I said, hey, this sounds awesome. Let's do this.
How old were you?
I was 35. You know, I'm not one of those super young entrepreneurs. I was a tenured professor.
You were focusing on research.
I was focusing on research, but I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I founded the systems engineering program at Cornell University with other faculty. When I started RoboCup at Cornell, there was no robotics activity. In fact, many of my colleagues told me, this is academic suicide. You're gonna start something from scratch as an assistant professor in your 20s. This is not a good idea. I said, no, this will be fine. I'm excited about mobile robots. I want to get into it. Starting a company with Mick and Pete just seemed very natural to me.
When young entrepreneurs start, they do it because, oh, I want to be billionaire. I want to be like Elon Musk. Maybe you had a different approach.
At heart, I'm a creator. I love creation. That's what's great about being a professor. You can create a lot of things that have never been done before. I've done that at Cornell University. I'm doing it here at ETH Zurich. For me, what really motivated me for Kiva was this vision of having thousands of mobile robots moving around autonomously. That to me was like, how else can I ever do this? Doing a company is pretty much the only way that you can actually do this.
Yeah, if you want to do something from scratch, business is the way.
That's right. So that was my motivation. It was the right time, the right team. Being a successful startup, there's a lot of things that have to go into it. It's not enough to have amazing technology. You need that. You also need an amazing team. We had that. But also timing is super important. It was kind of just the right time to do something like that.
A little bit early maybe,
That's
but
right.
just enough.
Exactly.
Not too much.
We also had a little bit of luck in 2008. We were doing well as a company, and I remember we were having lunch with Mick and Pete, the three of us, and we're talking about, should we do a fundraise? Probably don't need to because we're doing well. We're gonna be cash flow positive soon. And we decided, let's do a fundraise just in case. And of course, 2009 happened, the collapse. And it's a good thing that we had done that fundraise because basically things were not good for 18 months.
Did you raise money before, right?
Yes, we did.
So how did you manage to start the company? How much did you need? What was the first steps to start it?
Pretty standard story. You start with some angel investors and you put your own cash into it, and that you use that to build a company a little bit, come up with some simple proof of concept. Did that with very little amount of capital, but it was just really raw sort of stuff. And then you use that to we did a Series A, which I think was, no one would call that a Series A today, but it was, I think we raised 1.5 million, but that was enough to get us to the next level. Kiva was super capital efficient. Amazon acquired us for close to 800 million. We had raised only 40 million.
The valuation was low.
Everybody was happy. The investors did well, the employees did well, the common shareholders did well. It was a great outcome for everyone. And for Amazon, what's super interesting about Amazon is that 800 million at the time, people were saying, why would Amazon spend 800 million on a company?
Huge for the time. It was 2012, right?
Exactly. It was unprecedented. People were scratching their heads. heads. And fast forward to 5 years later, we were saving Amazon $3 billion a year. If you extrapolate to today, they're getting payback period of 1 month on their purchase. So
How did you manage to start making money with Kiva?
we did a great job navigating that. Mick did a spectacular job navigating it by having Staples was our first client. It was a big deal to get folks like that on board. Most companies are reluctant to try new technology. People thought what we were doing was, oh, this is science fiction. There's no way this is going to work. I think it's finding the right champion at a company that really takes the time to understand you and the team and the technology. The folks at Staples did that. They took a leap. We had our first install with them. It was successful, and that led to the next one, Walgreens, and so on.
What was your specific role? What were the others?
Mick was a business guy. Pete and I were the co-CTOs. I was focused on everything that was related to the robots. So the design of the robots, the navigation of the robots, the planning of the robots, obstacle avoidance, carrying the goods, resource allocation for charging, all those sort of algorithms. And Pete was responsible for everything related to the client, receiving the orders, figuring out which robots should go and pick up which pod and bring it to which person, making sure that the orders were filled. What was nice about the three of us is that we all have engineering backgrounds. Mick was super involved in design. So we were all interested in each other's parts. That was kind of the glue that tied us together.
Did you make any mistake?
Everyone always makes mistakes. You learn from your mistakes. Things that we could have done differently that we didn't necessarily need to do was we developed a solution where we had elevators and mezzanines, and we put significant amount of resources in doing that. We had enough business with our core product. The other mistake that we did is we took on a certain client we shouldn't have. It was so painful, very demanding. The business case forced us to do certain things. We spent a lot of time in development. They were a big client, so we thought this is good. Firing your clients is something that you should be prepared to do.
How long did you stay in the company?
We started in 2003. I was involved in the day-to-day until pretty much the end of 2007, so about 5 years. I had hired many of my former students at Cornell University to the company. The part that I was responsible for, the whole movement part of the solution, was well established. It was really about scaling the business. So I decided to kind of step back from day-to-day and decided to go back into academia. Started a professorship here at ETH Zurich. I stayed on as chief technical advisor at Kiva until the Amazon purchase in 2012.
You came back to what you like, teaching and researching.
I like many things. I love entrepreneurship. I love being a faculty and doing cutting-edge research. I love working with smart people, but I also get the itch after a certain amount of time. I want to go do the other thing. When I do research, I decouple it completely from applications. I don't care about applications when I do research. I do crazy stuff in my research, like drones that play ping pong and balance poles.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about the huge purchase. Personally, how did you feel about it?
You know, obviously I was happy when it happened. It's nice to see something that you've created, valued highly, taken over by a world-class company. And I would say that since that time, I'm also very happy. Amazon has built upon what we created. It's Amazon Robotic. The impact that it's had is significant, not just within Amazon, but also automation in general, that people are seeing the value of advanced automation. As a creator, I am super ecstatic about what happened.
Did your life significantly change after that?
I don't think my life changed very much at all.
When did you start the new company, Verity?
We founded in 2014 with my other founders, Marcus Weibel and Marcus Henn. Obviously, different founders. 3 is an interesting number. Solo founders, that must be a very lonely journey. I've enjoyed working with 2 other founders, both my companies. It's great. New sources of ideas, especially when you complement each other very well.
There is a risk you can break up.
You can. You have to pick them very, very well. We were very fortunate with Kiva and Verity now that we have great relationships.
Tell me more about Verity. Why did you start it?
As I mentioned, we founded it in 2014. I like to compare it to other automation companies. There's Kiva, which was super focused from day one, distribution. And another company, iRobot, went through like 20 different use cases before they had the Roomba and they struck it big. We're kind of somewhere in between. When we founded Verity, we knew that technology was going to be indoor localization, flying robots. And that's what we were focused in on. But we had several things that we were exploring. But one of them was really indoor navigation, being able to localize anywhere indoors. There was live events, entertainment, which because of my connections with live events, I have contact with Cirque du Soleil and other folks in entertainment. We knew that this was an interesting way for us to monetize our capabilities. But we also did a proof of concept at a Walmart warehouse in 2016 of using drones for inventory. So we had several things that we were exploring, and you know, the warehousing stuff really started to show that, hey, this could be huge. That's where we doubled down, and that's where we are today.
The warehouse business is similar to Kiva. At the time it was moving things, now it's checking things.
Exactly. Very, very different in terms, it's like the dual. If you think of a robot or if you think of any autonomous system, there's several components to it. One is the sensing, figuring out the world. Then there's the computation of figuring out what to do, and then there's the actuation of moving things. Kiva was about moving stuff. Verity is all about situational awareness, figuring out what is in my warehouse. You know, this 1 million square foot facility, do we really know where everything everything is? Can we uncover errors in where everything is stored? It's a very different use case. It also has different challenges and different pluses and minuses. I'll start with the pluses. The nice thing about Verity is that at the end of the day, our value is data. If you look at how data is collected, it's done with sensors, and sensors are small, lightweight, low power, which means that, especially when you're working indoors, there's really no limit to how small you can make the platform. We really want to have flying mobile phones. That's really what we want to.
Even less.
Even less. If you can do that, all of a sudden the economics are much more favorable than if you have big robots. Look at maintenance. If you're a global robotics company, you have to maintain these things. And usually that means you need a global maintenance force, that somebody has to go on site, repair things. With us, first of all, these things hardly ever break down because mechanically they're relatively straightforward. It's 4 motors and propellers. There's not a lot of moving parts. If something ever doesn't work the way it's supposed to, our clients can just put the things in a box, mail it to us, and we mail them a new one. This is something that is unprecedented in automation. Our journey, our vision, we call it swarm in a box. It's the vision of being able to have a self-deploying system where we just mail our clients a crate, they unpack it, they put the drones and chargers anywhere they want, they press a button, and the thing installs itself. We're striving towards a consumer-like experience for industrial automation that simply does not exist.
What are the minuses?
If you're a warehouse manager, you have 2 choices. You could make a $5 million purchase. It has a payback period of 3 years. Or you could embark on the Verity journey and spend $100,000 per year and have a payback period of 6 months. Which one would you do? You may very well decide to do the $5 million thing, even though the payback period is 3 years versus ours is 6 months, because it solves a bigger part of your problem. We may not be the #1 problem that the warehouse manager has. That's why it's super important for us that we don't just talk to the folks at the warehouse, but we also talk to the folks that are VP of operations, where they see the benefit of having visibility across all of their warehouses. And then the sum of all that savings then becomes significant.
It's a systematical benefit more than a single on the single warehouse. And what does your day look like?
Officially, I'm 50% Verity and 50% ETH. So I split my time between the two. When I put my research hat on, I don't care at all about applications. And then when I come to Verity, I come to the office 2 days a week. I just really try to push the boundary of what you can do with technology, with autonomy. I just like to be super creative. At Verity, I have an amazing management team. We have 9 folks in the management team. I see my job as making sure that the company is going in the right direction. If I ever have to tell anybody what to do, that's a bad situation to be in. I should never have to tell anyone what to do.
Your role is more business than the other company, or is still very technological?
It's less technology. One of the co-founders, Marcus Sen, is a former PhD student in my group. He's brilliant. He's the CTO. That frees me up to do other things. I do a lot of work with clients. There's a lot of technology that goes into what we do, setting the direction and working closely with the team. Investor relations, talking to investors, driving the vision of what it is that we want to do. But I am very heavily involved with technology. I always ask them, use me as a resource, ask me my opinion.
Is there any other company or entrepreneur that you say, those guys are really, really great, or we should learn something from them?
I've never been a fan of role models. Picking one individual and saying I want to be like them doesn't really make sense. In fact, when people say that to me, I say, look, you don't want me as a role model because I know that I have a lot of things that I need to work on. Everyone is my role model. My kids are my role model because they view the world in a certain way. Of course, there's guys like Elon Musk that it's amazing what all the different things that he's been able to do. As an entrepreneur, he's one that definitely has to be respected. That doesn't mean that he's my role model. In early days, Larry Page is an investor in Verity. Him and Sergey did with Google was spectacular at the time. The way that they started this company, the values that they imbued in it, that's something definitely to be respected. There's a lot of folks out there that have done amazing things.
Did you have any time a crazy experience that you say, I would never imagine to end up in a situation like this?
Yeah, I do. It was 2017 or 18. We had just done a show in China with our Lucy's live events, and some folks in Shanghai contacted us and said, hey, we're doing a TV show. There's going to be 150 million people. We'd love to showcase. We said, yeah, this is good. We probably want to do more business in China with live events. So I decided to fly there and do this. It ended up being, without any of us knowing, reality TV show where it was me against the founder of NIO, the Chinese Tesla. We were going head to head in a competition of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Like Shark Tank.
And I had no clue.
You didn't know about that?
I didn't know about this. I was just like there, and they were like, what's going on here? Yeah, they filmed this. It was like viewed 150 million people. They were asking me to do certain things. I said, I'm not doing that.
So you're famous in China right now?
I guess. I don't know. It was so bizarre.
What about bad moments?
I never panic. I never get stressed because all you can do is do your best. I'm not fearful. Of course, I want the company to be successful. We have 170 people. We have investors. I want the best outcome, but I don't get stressed about it. I just need to make sure that I make the best decisions that I I can, given the knowledge that I have at the moment. I can't second guess myself. Things don't go well. I can certainly say to myself, could I have done things differently? If I can say I made the best decisions I could with the information I had, then I sleep comfortably at night.
And sometimes things went bad or everything was more?
Well, you know, for example, COVID. We had just developed the beta version of our system in late 2019. We did a proof of concept in San Francisco with Prologis, and then COVID hit. Our live events business was doing really well. Live events just stopped. We had to take action. I'll be honest with you, I was never stressed about it. No, you don't panic. You just say, okay, this is what's happened. What do we do? And we acted very, very quickly. It didn't take us too long to figure out what the best course of action was. And we survived and became much, much stronger. We ended up doing our first demos with IKEA and DSV in the middle of COVID. Just adapt to the times. I think if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be an optimist. Like, you would never start a company if you're not.
A little bit of stoic mindset.
I'm a big, big fan of it. I'm always thankful of come to work today and it's a beautiful day outside. I just revel in that. Oh, what a nice day it is today. I try to look at the good in everything.
Let's talk about everything that is not business and not academic. What do you do for like sport, art, culture, books that you read, everything else?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of sports. We just came back from the Olympics with my family. My daughter just turned 12. My son is 8. My daughter is on the Swiss national figure skating team. She just made it last year, so she's a very accomplished figure skater. She's super excited about that. My son is on the regional gymnastics team. He's also a very good football player. My wife is an Olympic figure skating judge, so that's where my daughter gets her skating excitement from. My wife's also the CEO of a small medical devices company, so she's also entrepreneurial. I love sports. I played football when I was young. Now I stay in shape by going to the mountains. I hiking, skiing in the winter. My favorite activity in the winter is I love putting snowshoes on my back, just go climb a mountain and then come down the forest. The most I've ever done was in 2011. I just went crazy. This was before I had any kids, so I ended up doing 45 hikes that year, total of about 75 kilometers of elevation gain. That was a lot. Now I just don't have time to do that. I probably end up doing on a year half of that. I love sports. I love activity. My family does as well.
Some entrepreneurs cold plunge, other meditates.
Going to the mountains is meditation.
Yeah.
You're climbing for 3-4 hours. You just kind of lose yourself in it. At first, you're thinking of a lot of stuff. Near the end of going up, your mind is pretty blank. You're just kind of one step ahead of the other. You're enjoying nature.
What about book recommendation?
I'm a subscriber to 2 magazines, Analog, Science Fiction, and Asimov, Science Fiction and Fantasy. I've been a subscriber since 2000. I love reading these books.
A quel punto ho chiesto a Raff qualche consiglio per gli aspiranti imprenditori.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, the best thing to do is to dive in, because you learn. If you're interested in it, you don't have to actually necessarily start your own. Go and join a startup. There's a lot that you can learn in the first couple of years. There's a lot of things that didn't exist. There's a lot of activity here in Zurich in entrepreneurship. So there's a lot of things that folks can do.
Zurich is a good place to do it?
It is. It has become so. First of all, if you want to do a deep tech company, there's a lot of talent here. So that's great. Quality of life here is great, so you can attract people. Zurich's an expensive place, but if you actually compare it to Silicon Valley for technical talent, it's actually much more reasonable than Silicon Valley. So this is a good place to do a deep tech startup. The other ingredient that you need if you want to do a deep tech startup is you need a good investment environment. Here it is for early stage, seed, and maybe A. Where it gets a little bit more difficult is B and beyond.
Huge investment.
Huge investments, but it's getting better. It was very difficult when we did our Series B. So we did our Series A actually in 2018. I think it was the first time in the robotics space here in Switzerland where we had an external investor lead around, US-based investor, just people not used to it. Now it's becoming much more common.
Scoprire Verity, la storia di Raff, è stato veramente interessante. Non solo ha avuto modo di fare un giro in una startup che in gergo viene chiamata Deep Tech, dove la tecnologia è al centro, e tra l'altro sono rimasto sorpreso a scoprire che costruiscono tutto da zero, addirittura anche i droni. E poi la storia di Raffaello è veramente ispirante. Per metà scienziato, per metà imprenditore. Con già 2 grandi successi alle spalle, non ha iniziato a fare l'imprenditore a 19 anni come vogliono fare in molti. Fatemi sapere voi cosa ne pensate nei commenti, e se vi piacciono queste interviste agli imprenditori esteri, sono stato da poco anche in Germania, dove ho parlato con un imprenditore nel campo della criogenica, e anche a New York, dove ho parlato con un imprenditore che ha venduto la propria azienda per $250 milioni.